Thanks, everybody. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for turning out today and honoring Tom for his many accomplishments at Arrowhead. It's been a rough couple weeks for us with Tom's passing, but I think today, with the celebration of his life, it's going to be a great time to put some of that sadness behind us and move forward. Before we get going, you're going to hear some good stories, I'm sure, today. I got one that maybe none of you have heard before, but I shared with Tom many times, and he laughed every time I told it to him. It was a early day in May in 1982. I'm sitting in my office down at the Reporter, and in comes Dave Ballmer, the athletic director. And he's got this young, wide-eyed guy with him, and he kind of looks at me and he says, Chuck, this is Tom Taraska. He's our new football coach. Well, we had a good 10, 15-minute talk, and we laughed about stuff. We talked about the Arrowhead football program, the Arrowhead community, and then Dave and Tom left to come up to the school, actually. Well, I'm back in my office, sitting at my desk. A couple of my colleagues said, hey, Chuck, you've been watching high school football here since 1956, first year the school started. He said, what do you think of this new coach? I kind of looked at him and said, you know what? I got a gut feeling this guy ain't gonna crack it here. He's never gonna make it. If he lasts 2 years, 3 at the most, I'll be shocked. Well, shows you how smart I am, how smart sports writers are. 29 years later, he had 4 state championships, 5 runner-up finishes. But most important, he took a very, very average football program and turned it into the premier program in the state. Something now coaches from places like Homestead and Kimberly have followed Tom's blueprint. So that being said, let's move on, and Matt Harris is our first speaker.
Thank you. Glad you weren't there for my first day, Chuck, to tell how many years I was with you. All right, next year. First, we obviously didn't get that horn fixed. The greatest high school football coach in Wisconsin history. All the championships, the wins, the incredible players, the incredible coaching tree, and of course all the rings. While I can't say I have many of those things in common with him, I'm extremely honored to share something in common that I had with Coach T. Our incredible hairstyle. I know what everyone's thinking, but Coach Harris, you do share the same title as him, the head football coach of Arrowhead High School. But let me help everyone understand something. Many of you here have been coached, mentored, or loved by Coach Taraska, including myself these last 4 years. Constant texts and calls and stop-ins to let me know after big wins, Matt, you're doing great, which made me feel amazing. Matt, you're the perfect guy for this job. Even more importantly, when we lost, Matt, it's okay. It took me over 10 years to build this thing. Keep staying positive and keep staying passionate, and you will do it. Last year, we were fortunate to have him speak to our team last preseason. His resounding message was this: this program is where it is, not because of him or any individual. It's because of all the people who drove the bus in the direction that he believed was the path of success. He empowered everyone to be leaders of whatever they chose. He created a community of winners and hard workers who did everything they could to earn what they worked for. This is a contagious quality that I even see now in our kids. And it all started with Coach Taraska. I'll leave you with this. He was wrong about one thing in his message. In his humble words, he said this: this program is where it is because of everyone else. Well, let me say this. Coach T, you were wrong. This program is where it is today because of you. Without you, none of us or none of this would be here today. This is your community, and this is your football program forever. I promise you though, as the bus driver of this thing for now, I will do my best to hold it to your standards and to continue to fill the community with hardworking winners. And also, to keep this amazing hairstyle in your honor. Coach T, thank you. Thank you for everything.
Up next is the quarterback that led us to a state championship one year, Fuzzy Merritt.
Thanks, Coach. I had an incredible run with Coach Taraska, who won 2 state championships in '93 and '94. But it really wasn't about all that time on the field. It was the mentorship that he provided me for the last 30 years. I want to share one story with you all because if he shared it with me once, he shared it with me 100 times. And you know Coach T, he doesn't care if you've heard a story once, he's going to keep telling it. It was back in the late 80s and early 90s when he began to turn this program around. And at the time, he was an incredible student of the game. He was an incredible football mind. He went to the outside to find additional resources. Coach Sean Beckler, I know, was a big mentor to him. But he had something that he knew he needed, and he wanted to sustain success over time. And in order to do it, he knew he needed additional advice to get there. And he began reaching out to members of the community. And in doing so, he came across my father. The two of them struck up an instant relationship, a friendship, and they began to talk about what sustained success would look like here at Arrowhead. And if you knew my father, he was incredibly passionate. He was somebody that always wanted to build something to be the best. And he shared his advice with Coach T. And it was never about the X's and O's. They never talked about actual football on the field. What they did talk about was all of the non-football activity that Coach T would need to focus on in order to sustain that success over the long term. They talked about leadership, about vision, about community, about innovation, about thinking differently than other coaches in the state. It was about having the right people in the right seats on the bus. What became clear to Coach T from these conversations was that he needed to spend equally as amount of time off the field that he did on the field. He would need a team beyond the team to help him get there. And in those conversations, they talked about strategic planning. They talked about, as a football coach, that's one thing, Coach T, but you got to think about yourself differently. You got to think about yourself as the CEO of Arrowhead football. And what did that mean? That meant spending more time engaging in the community, engaging the administration in your vision and what it was going to take to sustain that success over time. His vision was to create a high-performance program mimicking those at the college football level with a focus on player development, outstanding facilities, elite coaching, community engagement, and to create a program with a culture of accountability that will ultimately lead to that sustainable success. He then needed to go out and engage with the community. He needed to take that vision to the administration, people like Jeff Steinbach, Dave Lotus, Dave Ballmer, people in the community like Don Tendick, Richard Minster, Bob Menifee, so many people along the way. And with those people bought in on that vision, they'd be able to do things here that nobody ever thought possible. You look at the weight room that was created in the early 90s, this turf field the creation of the Lake Country Chiefs youth football program, bringing in that pipeline of talent, ultimately this incredible stadium, now this incredible scoreboard in his honor. All of it was because of community, because of all of you. And that's the one thing that Coach always said. And just to reiterate what Coach Harris said, it was never about Coach Taraska. If he talked to you, it didn't matter how big of a role you played, how small of a role you played in any of this. He made you feel special. He made you believe that you were a key element in making all of this happen. And I think that was his greatest trait. He got all of us to believe in what it would take to have sustainable success, and he did it. And here we are today. So I just want to thank Coach T. I want to thank everybody in the community for coming together and helping us to create something really special over time. So thank you all.
Next in line is one of the best kickers we've ever had in the school history, Jeff Budzine.
Thanks, Chuck, and good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see this community come together at Taraska Stadium, no less. And I know Coach T is looking down and smiling right now. I'm Jeff Budzine, and I was the kicker for Coach Taraska from 2006 to 2009. And that stretch included 3 straight state title appearances and 1 state championship. However, my real journey with Coach Taraska started when I was a freshman at Arrowhead, and I played both soccer and football my freshman year. I had relatively successful seasons in both sports, but knew the athletic demands of sophomore year would require me to pick one sport to pursue, soccer or football. Coach T, in one of his famous Taraskans, told me, "Bud, even the soccer players' girlfriends are wearing football jerseys on Friday nights." As a freshman going through puberty, that's all I needed to hear. I made varsity as a sophomore in 2006, and Coach Taraska telling me that news was something I'll never forget. Unfortunately, the same can be said for my first 2 practices at Arrowhead. I was nervous as can be for my first varsity practice, and the field goal unit was going live in period 6. However, after the horn of period 2, Coach Taraska yells, "Budzine!" Both surprised and terrified that he knew my name, I pranced out to see him. "Yes, Coach. Where's my Diet Coke?" he said. "The kicker always brings me Diet Cokes during camp. Didn't Johnny Hoke teach you anything?" So that night, I had my dad drive me to Piggly Wiggly, buy a 12-pack of Diet Coke cans like this. The next morning, when I packed my lunch for 2 days, I also filled a separate cooler with 2 ice Diet Cokes for Coach T. Sure enough, after period 2, he calls my name. Giddily, I run out with a cooler and hand him an ice cold Diet Coke, only for him to yell, "A can? What am I supposed to do with a can? Bees crawling cans. Are you trying to kill me?" So that night, I tell my dad that he needs to take me to Piggly Wiggly again to buy more Diet Cokes, but this time in bottles with a cap that can be screwed on and off. My dad gave me a hug and said, "Jeff, you know I'll be proud of you. Are you sure you're on varsity?" The next day, Coach Taraska had his Diet Coke in a bottle. Well, it's a funny story, and it would always in jest to make me feel welcome on the team with juniors and seniors twice my size. It has strands of Coach Taraska's excellence. Potentiality is like a bee crawling into an open can, and thus stinging Coach T, perfectly described his attention to detail. To this day, he is the most prepared football coach I have ever seen. He never let footballs, water bottles, or helmets be on the sidelines during practice in case a player ran out of bounds and rolled an ankle. He studied film so seriously that he not only watched our opponent, but also watched the film from prior schools where those coaches coached to get any tips. Those years with Arrowhead football, we were playing chess versus checkers. Our players knew we were the best prepared team in the state, and it showed in our success. Coach Taraska cared about his players irrespective of skill level. In fact, he'd even show more respect to our scout team players, the demos as we call them, and publicly thank them for giving our starting unit the best look. And when my parents divorced my junior year, he found out and immediately walked to my Algebra 2 classroom, pulled me out, and gave me a hug. It's those memories I'll never forget. While playing for Coach T wasn't easy, there was one thing with him that was really easy. Being a football player in his gym class during the fall. While everyone was out there participating, he'd make the football players sit on every unit while still getting an A. I can quote, "I'm not losing state because my kicker sprained his ankle playing badminton." But there was one exception. Every time a college scout came to Arrowhead to see me during the day, we'd play kickball that day. And he'd go to the pitcher and say, "You rolled Jeff the slowest pitch of all time right down the middle." I played more kickball games in front of Brett Bione than anyone ever made. I could share more Taraskisms, but we'd be here all day. A few of my favorites are, "The only thing you can depend on with freshmen is that they're undependable." Or The Office said, "Jesus, Jones," followed by a sign on the cross. This meant you were in deep shit. There is last one I want to share. Coach T would always give a statement of fact and then repeat it in the form of a question, but last word for you to fill in. He'd say, "When they're in this formation, they'll blitz." They always what? Blitz. Exactly. Even the dumbest guys on our team batted 1,000 on these questions. And I credit this false sense of confidence to me getting academically accepted into Northwestern. Coach Taraska was a great man who loved football above everything, except for his beautiful wife, Susie, who he talked about constantly. Coach, you put Arrowhead on the map. We miss you, but thank you for being such a good man. A good what? Exactly.
Tom coached a lot of really good football players here at Arrowhead, and he made those people good football players. But our next speaker is clearly the best football player we've ever had at Arrowhead, Nick Hayden.
So my family and I came to Harlan in 1999. I was going to Catholic grade school in Brookfield and was able to finish it up before I entered Arrowhead High School. I was supposed to go to CMH with the rest of my friends, but my parents wanted more house and land, so moving west seemed most reasonable option. Before the move, my parents explored both schools in CMH and Arrowhead. When my parents talked to Coach T, there was an instant connection. Coach T remembered my dad as a wrestler and football player at Muskego High School while he was the head coach at Franklin. He would always tell the story of how my dad picked up a wrestler with one arm and body slammed him into the mat for the pin. Coach T would always tell college scouts that my dad was tough, but the one you have to watch out for was my mom. She was the toughest one in the family and the better athlete. Coming into Arrowhead as a new kid was easy because of Coach T. I walked into an existing family built from tradition and brotherhood. It wasn't about one player. It was always about the team. I remember one day, my senior year, Coach T kicked me out of practice because during a water break, I decided not to get any. I went up to the locker room, took my gear off, and waited for practice to end. I went up to Coach and asked him what I did wrong. He told me to have my parents come in the next day if I want to play football again. Not a conversation I was looking forward to having with my parents. My parents came in the next day, and Coach D goes to them, "Hey, I need to make an example of your son to show the team that everyone is the same and not one person is greater than the other." It was always about the team first with him, and that you're only as strong as your weakest link. I never knew why he did that until I started coaching, and he would tell me that story. Coach T would always relate life stories and turn them into football. He always talked about not being vanilla, which meant average. Being vanilla doesn't win championships. Work ethic, teamwork, confidence wins you championship. He would always circle up after practice, and he would always have the leaders kneel in front of the team. If you didn't, he would let you know. Leaders led from the front and not in the back. One word that keeps coming back to me is tradition. It's what he built from the ground up. That's what you see now when you look around this stadium. He would always talk about former great players and the tradition of excellence they left behind. It formed that bond and brotherhood amongst the rest of us to be the greatest we could be. A big reason I got back into coaching was him. I was fortunate enough to be an assistant coach with Taraska for 2 years, and I really got to see a different side of him and how he operated. At the end of the day, football is just a kid's game. But the experience and bonds you gain from it are a lifetime. There will never be another Coach T, but I will continue to strive to be a mentor like he was for me, helping kids be the best version of themselves on and off the field. We can only hope that the future generation of Arrowhead players, students, kids are fortunate enough to have someone to push them and strive to be their best as they approach adulthood, just like Taraska did for many of us. So, Coach T, we'll miss you. Thank you for all the memories you created for us. Cheers, Coach. Thank you for creating a family, brotherhood, community, and a tradition of excellence. We are Arrowhead.
How's this program going? Pretty darn good, isn't it? I think we got to give credit where credit is due. It's put together by Tom and Tammy Loper, Chris Harriet, and Arrowhead's #1 goodwill ambassador when it comes to sports, Jimbo Lavoie. Thanks a lot, you guys. Next up will be Tommy Loper.
Vintage. That's what Coach T would say. Wow. Look at all this. These wonderful people here at Taraska Stadium. These kind of things. Gathering of good people. Championships. And most importantly, relationships for a lifetime. Things like this do not happen to guys like me. Coach T so vintagely always deflected the credit and would always give credit to the people around him. His coaching staff, the community that bought in and believed that we could win championships. All his players, all the families, the Arrowhead faculty, from top to bottom. These championships were a reflection of all of us here today. Holy cow, T was a legend. My former teammate, Jimmy McClune, he said it best. Coach T was larger than life, a leader of people, includer of all, witty, a teacher, most importantly, someone you could go to that cared. Coach T was not only vintage, one of one. He fed off of always making others feel special. I recall a Phi Ed class in 1988. Hey, Tammy! Merrick! I need you to get the gym class started today. Hey, come sit with me. You gotta be ready to compete in your swim meet tonight. You know your girls are gonna win another state title. Coach T was always inspirational and wanted the best for all his students, student athletes, no matter if they were competing for state titles or scoring soccer goals in Phi Ed class. I can still hear it. Good luck tonight, superstar. You will do great, T would say. He loved putting smiles on kids' faces, making people laugh with his unforgettable grin and shake of the head when he witnessed one of his student athletes possibly engaging in actions that might not be, or borderline, the best thing they could do. I can admit I got that look from Coach T many times, as well as my D-back wide receiver teammate Dr. Vaughn can attest. Bonner got the Coach T smile, followed by the head shakes many times as well. To me, that says a lot about life lessons. Coach T believed life was about relationships. We all need good people around us. Friends, family, and most importantly, each other. Build lifelong relationships, he would say. It was the foundation at which T built this powerhouse of a program. Nobody is strong enough to get through everyday life without interacting with other humans. Everyone needs a pat on the back or a simple, hey, how's your day going? People need people. I remember the first time I met Coach T in August of 1982. Jimbo the boy and I had just finished working out, getting up shots in the North Campus gym with that squishy floor with another legend coach, boys basketball coach Greg Smith. Jimbo was 11. I was 10. Two young bucks. After shooting hoops, we rode our dirt bikes over to the football field, right over there, in hopes to catch a glimpse of the new varsity football coach, Tom Taraska, and all the big boys practicing right here in Taraska Stadium. See, we didn't have tackle football in our local grade schools, only flag. So we were mesmerized of watching the older kids practice and dreaming about someday playing on this field for the new coach. As we watched from our bikes on the other side of this track, we began to creep closer to the action, struggling to contain the excitement. That us as two young boys had to someday, maybe we would get a chance to play on the A. After watching for a while, now we had crept almost all our way onto the field. And we hear Coach T yell, "Hey, you two better back up. We don't need anybody out here getting hurt over there." Jimbo and I looked at each other, scared. Is that the new coach? You holler at us? An 11-year-old Jimbo said to a 10-year-old me. Backed up shyly, continued watching practice for a bit. Before you know it, we had begun to creep closer to the field again. Coach T came over once again. Coach T yelled, "You two kids need to back up behind the track before you get blown up by one of my seniors." Now, shocked and scared, we both looked at each other and began speeding away on our BMX bikes. I remember Jimbo turns and yells back at Coach T, I'm going to be your quarterback someday." 11-year-old Jimbo LaBoy. When I look back at Coach, on my bike that day I saw it for the first time. The shaking of the head. The smile, the smirk that only Coach T could deliver. Little did me and Jimbo know that wouldn't be the last time that Coach T would yell at us. Not only did Jimbo end up playing quarterback for Coach T, I did too. Sorry. I was lucky enough to be quarterback one, the very first team in school history to win the first state playoff game. The first of Coach Taraska's 47 state playoff wins. The beginning of the dynasty Coach T built. So many great memories, life lessons learned out here on this field. Thanks to Coach T and his amazing coaching staffs he had always put together. T touched many lives. They say a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in an entire lifetime. Think about that. He coached for 29 years. He taught for 29 years as well. It's insane to think of the amount of kids Coach T influenced and mentored in his life. T was truly larger than life, loved by so many. His legacy and tradition of excellence will never be forgotten. He was and forever will be Arrowhead football. Coach T forever.
Next guy is going to speak, the best ambassador of sports and education at Arrowhead the school's ever had. He was Tom's best friend. And he's so famous, he only has one name. Jimbo, it's your turn.
Thanks. For starters, I'm gonna welcome the firefighters down there. It's my boys. Liz, I gotta thank you for all the stuff behind the scenes. She thought of all this. Liz is behind this. That scoreboard. It's Coach Chris Harriet. He's got some skills that I don't have. So, let's go to work. The first thing I was to say, the first day I met T, hope she took care of that. His favorites, all the things that you don't know. Y'all know on the grand, y'all know the trophy, you don't know about me. I'm gonna tell you, you don't know. Favorite food was pepperoni pizza and hamburgers. Never wore shorts on the sidelines. Love the beach, love the water. Love watching sunsets. Kick Nick Hayden out of practice. Loved his dog Shelby. Nicknamed him Killer Dog. Coach T ate lunch with Coach Hazy every day in his office. He went trick-or-treating with my 2 daughters. He went to track meet, conference track meet, 29 straight years. He would never tell me, he told me one time, Jimbo, you coach great players, good players, and special players. And the special ones come by once a decade. Coach T was a certified lifeguard. He would write handwritten letters, motivation letters to many people. I bet you a few here has received one. He would send out 150 to 200 Christmas cards with Susie's help. And yes, I've had a beer with Coach T before. Never gambled. Never had a left-handed quarterback play for him at Arrowhead. First player at Franklin, Ricky Duranzo, was left-handed. People why Coach T never had kids. Never. Let me tell you some story. Scouting one time, we go scouting, he's in a creek, and he says, Jimbo, get up there and get me a spot on the 50-yard line. I said, okay, so stop in the canteen and got back with 2 sodas and hot pockets. Who coming? He gets up there and dumps that soda all over the bench. What the fuck? He goes, no one's sitting next to me when I'm scouting. One day he had a John Deere tractor. It's cutting uneven. I go, T, put some air in the left tire. So one time he goes coaching after Arrowhead, he goes over to Kosh, and coaching there, and a guy over there goes, you like coaching Division III better than Arrowhead? He goes, are you crazy? Coaching Nick Hayden at Oshkosh. One time we go to Camp Randall and we're leaving, and a guy says, T, stop at McDonald's, and I got it. President McDonald's, it's not like Bill Fields. So we do, everyone eats. He comes over, he goes, Jimbo, get in my office. I go, what? He goes, check this out. $746 to McDonald's. I go, what? He goes, you gotta pay it. So, never did again. So one time he takes me in 1988 to Michigan football camp, and it was a great experience and fun. So we're driving back, and it's bumper to bumper, stopped on the freeway. And he goes, get out. What? He goes, you're driving, I'm done with this shit. So I try to drive 5 hours or something. Never seen a man cry, but Nick Hayden did. Yep, right. He said, he never talked about death with me, but he said, Jimbo, I'm in the 4th quarter, hoping for overtime. You know, little MG used to drive around here, some of you guys probably remember. And he said, come over and help me out taking this thing out of storage shed. We're going to tow it to another storage shed because it's $5 cheaper a month. But we ripped the bumper off the damn thing. It cost $300 to fix that. And he put that thing in a storage unit, $3,000 unit, cost him 25 grand over the years. But he loved that car. And sometime he says, Jimbo, you can have that MG someday. So about 3-4 years ago, he says, Jimbo, you want that MG still? I said, I ain't fitting in that thing anymore. One time he hired my good friend Warren Bubb, and he said to me the other day that he still uses stuff that Coach T taught him, coaching girls basketball. So the methods work and other things too. And then he told me another story in 1998. Back in '88, he had a teammate at Pewaukee, and Coach T asked this kid, coaching the All-Star team, says, "You play for me at the All-Star." Could have picked other guys. And he told Warren the story, saying, "Changed my life." And I said, T, in that year, I said, "Why do you take the kid?" "Well, he's local, he's tough, and I thought I could win with him." He did. He would never tell me who his best players were, ever. But I know who his best player he ever coached, but he really didn't coach her. She coached him, his wife Susie. Gotta thank her. She allowed that to happen. So, thank you so much, Susie. You're a rock, you're solid, and you put up with his bullshit. So, I go by a little statement. It's in my basement hanging up every day. I look at it. It says, "A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life." That was that guy. So, not good. So now I'm going to tell you about, give some other people credit that he mentored or inspired coaches that coach for him. Bob Larson, Doug Destash, Steve Urban, Tim O'Driscoll, Warren Bubb, Doug Recke, Mike Knavok, Jim Hessler, Mike Ward, Jerry Golombeski, Larry Matson. Just a few. Now, remember I told you, he never talked about the best player. But I'm going to tell you about some players that did some good things. Golombeski was his first football coach, first quarterback at Arrowhead. Tom Loper was the first 10-game winner. Say that ain't work. There you go. 10-game winner. Fuzzy Merrick, 32-1, 2 state titles. Mike Sowald, 2 state titles, 2 Rose Bowl titles, Super Bowl ring. Keep it coming. Pete Kishline won the state as a player and a coach. Tyler Donovan, quarterback the Badgers. Tyler Greenbaum, 2-time All-State. Nick Hayden, All-American, All-Everything. Played for the Badgers, 9 years in the NFL. Jimbo played D3 because there's no D4. Outstanding players. Probably gonna miss a few, but I'm gonna throw these names out there. Derek Landis, John Herman, Tim Lamont, Matt Fong, Donnie Eichert, J.P. Lang, Brian Gilmore, Toby Golombeski, Doug Recke, Russ Finkel, Jim Singatarski, Aaron Nye, Brad Peterson, Chris O'Connor, Joe Nicholas, Jared Volk, Justin Recke, John Hoke, Mike Schrader, Jeff Tremmel, Doug Loper, Jim Jaworski. So thank you, T. I love you. Susie, thanks for everything.
Now we're going to put together a video presentation. Chris, you all set to roll? It'll be on the screen.
Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you would always have the rest to hold yourself with those around you crawl. You crawled out of the woodwork and they whispered into your brain. They said you on the treadmill and they made you change your name. It seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never knowing who to cling to when the rain set in. I would have liked to have known you, but I was just a kid. Your candle burned out long before your legend ever did.
Incident over the weekend in Waukesha County claimed the life of a 71-year-old man.
And we learned that man was one of the most successful high school football coaches in Wisconsin history. Tom Taraska did a whole lot more than just win games.
Coming out of Waukesha County, the beloved former Arrowhead High School coach Tom Taraska has died. He was 71 years old.
His 25th year.
Through nearly 3 decades, beginning in 1982,
Arrowhead football was Tom Taraska.
Outpouring of sadness and stories today.
On Monday, the Arrowhead Warhawks practice ahead of their playoff game against Mukwonago.
Football playoffs, this was Tom Taraska time, right?
You don't get a saying like that unless you win a lot, and that's what Tom Taraska did at Arrowhead, winning 4 state championships and finishing as the state runner-up 5 times. To reach that success, people describe Taraska as a perfectionist.
Coach Taraska was somebody who was very intimidating from the outside looking in, but once you got to know him, he was as gentle and as kind as anybody in any walk of life.
Alumni just contacting me, and every single sentiment is all the same. Without Tom Taraska, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Current coach Matt Harris said Taraska still closely followed the team.
It's really cool to see someone who built probably and arguably the greatest high school football program in state history, but he built a community.
Detail on everything, right? Tom was always attention to detail on everything.
If there's a helmet laying on the ground, it drives me nuts because that was not allowed. A football laying around, that's not allowed. Jimbo, let's make this Friday night the best thing in this community.
Game facilities, yes. Can we use the practice area? Yes. Can we use the blocking shed? Oh, you bet.
The latest show of this community's appreciation was the new scoreboard at Taraska Stadium, which was just installed last week.
He drove out here to see it. Told him it was up, and he drove out here to see it. Cut and dry.
Now, one other thing that we heard stories about today are the Christmas cards and handwritten notes that so many people say Taraska would often send them. In fact, Ryan Mansion, the activities director at Arrowhead, said he got one of those handwritten letters right after he got hired, and in fact, that letter arrived in the mail a full 3 weeks before he even had his first day on the job.
So much love coming.
He always used the term, I've been blessed. I've been blessed to have great coaches. I've been blessed to have this community. I've been blessed to have great players.
Come around once in a lifetime.
Tom Loper played quarterback for Tom Taraska for 3 years in the late 80s. He says Coach T was like no other.
For me, he was so much more than a coach. He's the kind of guy that would walk in a room, maybe see a kid who didn't fit in, and he'd go right up to him, maybe refer to the kid or the student as, you know, you're a superstar, you know, and put a smile on people's faces. He just had a tendency to be able to light up.
Programs often talk about family, and this week, Arrowhead High School lost one of its founding fathers. Tom Taraska's success on the football field put the football program on the map in the state of Wisconsin, and before the playoff game Friday night, he was honored for it. Players, coaches, and fans from both teams joined in a moment of silence to honor former Arrowhead head coach and Wisconsin Hall of Famer Tom Taraska.
Different generations of people who've been touched by Coach Taraska, you know, young people that know about him, but multiple generations.
Highly valued and respected fellow.
2019 grad Matthew Cochran worked alongside Taraska after he stepped down.
If you were struggling and you needed help, he would always come and ask and be more inviting to bring you in and make you better as a person overall.
Despite being on the road Friday, Taraska's presence was felt throughout the stadium. Arrowhead players wore a special sticker on the back of their helmets, and the coaching staff wore special hats.
Brand new today, obviously we came up with these for Coach Taraska, and it's the colors, but the T.
Activities Director Ryan Mangan said there's been an outpouring of support this week from former players and students.
I think in some ways it's unifying to say, wow, look how long we've been doing this. Look at all the people that are still involved, that were involved, you know, back then and still.
Unparalleled to anybody else's, and it was really nice to see it come to fruition.
During his tenure, he accumulated 265 wins, won 4 state titles, and collected a number of Hall of Fame awards.
Unbelievable legacy that can't be matched. I mean, his name is on the stadium that we're standing in.
You were pretty close with him, weren't you?
Understatement.
Jimbo Lavoy Bergman says Taraska treated him like a son.
Great friend and mentor.
There's kids calling me all the time, and the best time of their lives was with him.
Taraska not only coached football, but he was a physical education teacher as well. He was known by almost everyone in the community.
He just had that touch, you know, that vibe, that drive, and it made everybody overachieve and everybody believe that we're going to win.
Coach Tom Taraska leaves behind his wife Susie and a community that will never forget him.
Coach T forever, baby.
In Heartland, Megan Lee, TMJ4 News.
And this community would say that they were blessed to have had him.
But I knew I was old when one of my high school friends' grandson was in my class. And I just looked and I said, my God, Tom, you went to grade school and were best friends with his daddy. Kids are special. The job's special. Coaching high school football, high school sport is unbelievable. You're so wrapped up in our lives. Just a very special job.
Loneliness was toughest role you ever played. Hollywood created a superstar, paid with the price you paid. Even when you died, oh, the press still hounded you. All the papers had to say was that Marilyn was found in the news. Seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never knowing who to cling to when the rain set in. Would have liked to have loved you, but I was just a kid. The candle burned out long before. Legend never
Great job, Chris. Great job. Thanks for everything. Once again, I want to thank all you people for coming out today, helping us celebrate Tom's life and his success stories. Susie, you're up in the box. Remember, I speak for the old Arrowhead community. If you ever need any help, any support, or anything, feel free to call on us. We'll be there for you. Anybody that was ever in Tom's Phi Ed class knows he used to call all the kids superstars all the time. Well, Tom, I know you're looking down on us today. You're the real superstar. Rest in peace, my friend. Thanks for coming out. The celebration of Tom's life is going to continue at Enters immediately following when he's welcome to attend. Thanks a lot again, everybody.